Hello, everyone. I think we can start today's webinar. So welcome everyone to Open Education Week, and it's the second event already this week. I hope you were able to join yesterday. So we are glad to see you here as well today. And today's topic will be about challenges micro-credentials bring and solutions QualityLink proposes. So before we start, you can see here all week's webinars that on behalf of Eden, we are inviting you to join. We have still 3 more webinars left this week, so we hope that you will be able to join them as well. And of course, we share here the invitation to join our upcoming Eden annual conference, which will take place this year in Porto. And we still have some time before paper submission deadline, which is March 20, and early bird registration at April 20. Okay, so everyone is invited to join us for the conference as well. And today we will talk about micro-credentials. And we will have 2 presentations. In a minute, I will present you with our presenters. And we will have 2 more people joining us for the panel discussion on the challenges these micro-credentials bring. So first of all, we would like you to let us know about who you are and how experienced you are with the micro-credentials. And I see the responses are coming in. We still have, so some of you responded, but we have chosen, from various angles to look at the micro-credentials, and thus please let us know if you have issued, if you have received micro-credentials, or maybe you have already developed them. I'm glad that most of you indicated that you know what micro-credentials are. Okay, but looking at the number who responded, so it's not everyone who definitely knows what these micro-credentials are. And okay, so maybe a couple more minutes for you to respond. You should be able to see the link in chat as well for for the answers. Okay, but okay, so to sum up, I see that definitely most of you know what micro-credentials is. We will definitely be discussing about these definitions with our panelists today. And I'm glad to see that we have some people who have developed or contributed to the institutional regulation development, and some of these who have received or issued micro-credentials. And we have less people who developed these micro-credential issuing systems. Okay, so okay, the next slide is for you to for us to see what your role in an institution is. We wanted to see if you are mainly lecturers or researchers, or maybe from policy level, or managers, or developers, or course catalog developers, managers. What is your profile? Are you more teacher research focused, or management focused, or representing any IT role? What is your role? So we have 2, okay, from IT sector, and a bit more teachers, lecturers, researchers, Okay, some managers, course catalog developers, okay. So mainly you see that our group is constructed from teachers, developers, and researchers. Okay, so this is also the idea for presenters, that maybe not to go too deep into the IT section, as most of the people are here not IT developers. Okay, so we will touch this a bit, but of course not go deeply in there. Okay, so although I'm still waiting for the other missing answers, but I think that as it does not change anymore, let me maybe move to our next slide. And today, as I mentioned, we have this webinar, which is actually a QualityLink project dissemination event. We want to share what project has developed and how it can be maybe later on integrated into your institutions. So we will have in a minute a presentation by Jochen from DHBV and Colin from KIC, who will present main project results. And then we will have 4 people in our panel discussion. Okay, so briefly to present you, Jochen is the project manager and coordinator of our QualityLink project. He is also the manager of other projects in DHBV, Germany, Dual University, and he has participated in other projects on micro-credentials, and he has expertise in quality assurance field. Colin is a representative from KIC, Knowledge Innovation Center. He has a lot of experience in European higher education policy and cooperation. He has been involved in quality assurance, recognition, interoperability, and data exchange in different European project areas. He was a director of the ECHA, European Quality Assurance Register, and a number of projects regarding micro-credentials. Airina is most from Eden from people may know, but she is former Eden president, now Eden senior fellow. She is representing here Vytautas Magnus University, where she is a professor and has been working as with leading researchers, methodologists, and educational policymakers in the area of TEL for a number of years. She was LIEDIAM, Lithuanian Distance and E-Learning President, and now is the Director of Innovative Studies Institute at Vytautas Magnus University. And Henri, he is a professor from Tampere University, who comes more from IT perspective, and he represents Finland here, and his research focuses on micro-credentials, agentic AI, and virtual reality. And for the past years, he has been working in various international projects and has been working as a work package leader as well as task leader for micro-credentials at the SEU University Alliance. So we have these kind of experts who joined here today, and now I will stop sharing with my presentation and give the floor to Jochen, maybe to start the presentation. Before Jochen starts, maybe people just wanted to say hi, the panelists. So short hi from you.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
It's wonderful that you all are joining. We have 56 participants at the moment. It's wonderful that you are here. Can you see my slide? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So the current challenges regarding micro-credentials are that reliable data is essential for flexible learning pathways and for recognition of micro-credentials. But sometimes we don't have the reliable data. Basic course data is often not published in structured and open form, and other data that would be valuable for learners to judge the quality and usefulness of a micro-credential is rarely published using open standards. So the solution that we are proposing is open course data. So we suggest that institutions openly share their course data, and we will talk about the challenges and the benefits in the following 1.5 hours. So use cases for open course data and for enriched course data on micro-credentials is, of course, to give guidance to potential learners, that they know about the possibilities that a learning opportunity, a micro-credential, gives to them, and how it can be recognized towards their degree or other qualification. For recognition and also recognition in the labor market, you need comprehensive information on the achievements and the courses. And a special use case is for European university alliances or other alliances when they want to develop joint course catalogs displaying all the learning opportunities from partners that are open to the own students and displaying the recognition options. But open course data could also bring other benefits, such as mapping or benchmarking, looking at what other institutions in the field are offering and how they organize their learning, interoperability for other applications, and a large course catalog could also bring Europe-wide visibility. So we at QualityLink basically try to tackle this problem with two work packages, two challenges. So first, we developed quality indicators for learning opportunities, which bring together information from different sources, not only from the learning provider, about the content relevance and labor market demand, about teaching methodology, about accessibility, and about how learner-centered the learning is, with the aim that there would be a course catalog that gives comprehensive information to learners. And the second, even more important part of the project was on policies and standards. So we propose a unique course identifier. We have, together with the community, developed policies on data sources and data access, ontology and application profile, technical solutions for data source discovery, and data exchange using established standards. So we are proposing technical specifications, but of course it's all based on existing standards. And we did all this on the right low corner in a community co-creation process with what we call a standards consultation board, where we involved several university alliances. We involved people active on the European Digital Education Hub. We had EdTech on the board, and we had policy on the board. So the result is now that we have a front end for learners, which is not visually optimized yet, but it just shows how it could work. And we have a back end, a dashboard for education providers, where they see how the information they provided is integrated into the system. So the idea is to create an open quality data exchange architecture where education institutions, but also other data sources and official sources could feed data into the QualityLink architecture. This data will be aggregated on course level or micro-credential level, and then it can be viewed on the web or can be accessed via an API or can be downloaded. Elements that would have to be provided are the standard elements of the European approach to micro-credentials. You are all familiar with them. And some additional quality indicators that we identified, which we thought that a learner needs to judge on the quality of the learning opportunity and of the credential that he or she receives. So the indicators are whether the course information and credential information is accurate and up to date, information on the demand for the skills that they learn, on the stackability of the micro-credential, and then on quality assurance, on tutoring, on virtual learning environment, on recognition options learners have towards this credential, on student ratings, on expertise of lecturers, on networks, institutional reputation, and on how the micro-credential that they earn would be recognized in other fields. So I hand over with this to my colleague Colin, and I stop sharing.
Yes, thank you, Jochen, and I continue sharing from the same page. There we go. So as Jochen said, we have a set of information that that includes both the standard descriptive elements of micro-credentials, but also quality indicators that we in general want to exchange between institutions and other sources. When approaching this, the first thing we did is we looked at a landscape of data standards that already exist for covering some, if not most, of this. So some of you might be familiar with the European Learning Model, ELM, which is also used for the European Digital Credentials infrastructure. Some of you might be familiar with the Open Education API or the Edu API. And so we looked at those and a few other existing data standards that all cover programs, courses, micro-credentials, or learning opportunities in general. What we observed is that the European Learning Model is clearly the most broad data standard. It covers maybe the most expressive data standard that we have already, because it allows to already describe a lot of different facets and dimensions about learning opportunities that we need in the QualityLink project or that are needed, for example, in context of European University Alliances and otherwise. We did so we relatively fast arrived at the conclusion that the European Learning Model should be the reference standard. We decided that there are in the end 4 main standards that we need to support, which is next to the European Learning Model, also the Open Education API, the Edu API, and the Open Course Catalog API. But the approach that we took is that if institutions make data available in one of the other formats, it would be converted to ELM, and that is our general reference. We did in our standards consultation board, we discussed quite extensively with people who are also very active in European Universities Alliances and try to solve challenges with cross-institutional learner enrollment in programs and so on. And we did find a couple of items that are not yet covered in the European Learning Model. So, for example, clearly expressing institutional groups and showing enrollment capacity of concrete learning opportunities. And we did propose a few extensions to the European learning model to adequately model these things. However, of course, one of the key things we try to achieve with the QualityLink project is not to have just one data model that we use and one data model in which data can be expressed and provided, but really to build concrete bridges between these four main data models, because we see that they are all widely used in Europe, and it is not we're not in the situation that we have one single let's say dominant data standard that is used for descriptive data on credentials and courses. Now, before getting into the actual architecture, how we then deal with different data sets, of course, the first question would be, how do we even find data from different sources? As Jochen said, we want to create an open infrastructure where any higher education institution in Europe can easily feed data on their courses and learning opportunities into. And we did also want to create an architecture that that is inherently scalable. So we wanted to avoid any system where someone needs to sit and manually manage onboard every single higher education institution, or manually manage higher education institutions' user accounts or similar, because we did want to come up with an architecture that would, in principle, work even for hundreds or thousands of European higher education institutions without need for much manual intervention with every single institution. So to achieve that, we did build the whole architecture on existing sources or existing registries of trusted providers. We have the database for external quality assurance results that is managed by the European Quality Assurance Register. And that is already an existing reference list of recognized and quality assured higher education institutions in Europe. Of course, that covers only higher education institutions at the moment, which was our focus in this first phase. But of course, the same principle could be extended to other type of providers in future step. And then, without going into too much of a technical detail here, also taking into account the audience, of course, how the approach that we then suggested is that, of course, basically every higher education institution or every education provider has a website or has an internet domain, and we proposed a relatively simple data source discovery mechanism where we use the trusted list of recognized institutions and then are able to discover data sources under the institution's web domain, provided that the institution puts there what is now in technical terms called a so-called manifest file, and that is really for the a kind of a table of contents. So it's a little file which basically says, okay, we have data that is available in this format, and here's where you can find it, or here are some parameters that an aggregator would need to access that data. So it's we basically propose the standardized location under the institution's website where institutions can put this file to basically advertise their data sources so that they can be found. Now, if at the moment we are trying to advance the slide. Yeah, at the moment, as I said, we are supporting three different data models or APIs. We support the European Learning Model, the Open Education API, the Edu API, and the Open Course Catalog API. The whole proposal is, however, built, let's say, modular and extensible. So it would be relatively easily doable to add another data format if it became relevant and say, okay, there's now another data standard or another API format. that would need to be supported, and which institutions can provide their course data, and that could easily be integrated in the future result. So in a future iteration. Now, what again, without going too much into details, we have of course different ways of accessing these data sources. They are all a bit different, but and we didn't want to reinvent the wheel there. Basically, what we did is we just proposed some specifications for some standard approaches to connect to these data sources and these APIs, and we basically tried to mainly fill the gaps between those different standards that were existing, and we made sure not to, let's say, not to reinvent or respecify anything that is already covered by those existing standards. Now that means what is the one maybe the first and foremost result of the QualityLink project to date is actually a suite of specifications that we proposed. Jochen already mentioned it briefly earlier. Starting with a policy on terms and conditions for data use. We have a small ontology that extends the European learning model for things that are not yet covered there. We have a common format for unique course identifier that can be used between different data standards in an interoperable way. We have a standard mechanism to discover data sources, and we have a specification that describes how different supported data formats or API standards can be used and accessed by an aggregator. Now, as I said, one set of outcomes of this project is really the set of specifications that we proposed and co-developed with our standards consultation board. And then the second main result that we can share with you is the actual pilot aggregator and pilot catalog. That is basically a pilot product that implements those proposed specifications. And I will show you that very briefly. I just have to change the window for that. Here we go. This is how the course catalog looks at the moment. As Jochen said, it's not entirely visually optimized yet, because I think what we have to stress is that even though we have a catalog, of course, to illustrate the aggregated data set that we have, the main purpose of this project has not been to produce a great visually appealing catalog. The main purpose of this project has really been to work on the, well, as I like to call it, the plumbing behind it, and the technical architecture and infrastructure that makes it possible to have a catalog fed by data from different sources. When you look at the pilot catalog now, you see that there are almost 700 courses in it from a range of universities and higher education institutions. You actually see quite a lot of test data from the ECIU, European University Alliances. So big thanks to Henri's colleagues for participating in the testing and development of this. And you also have some data from the Eurotech Alliance and other alliances. And what you see now in one joint catalog comes from different sources and also through different data standards. So currently you have some data there that comes from in ELM format, some data that comes from an OAPI endpoint of Eindhoven, or the data that comes in ELM format from the ECIU Alliance. So you see that, I mean, it is a very basic catalog now of courses. You can, of course, filter and so on, and you see then some very basic data in it for now. We are still working on really then covering some of the various indicators that Jochen mentioned earlier, at least for some of the courses. And then Jochen also shared the link in the chat. There is a dashboard for institutions that actually to advertise or to check if your data sources are discovered if you want to feed your own data into the system. And I will just show that very briefly. So, for example, I saw here, if you're at the Technical University of Vienna, I'm seeing I have only 2 courses here at the moment. I can go to my institution dashboard. I will see that, of course, this is still mock-up data, so this is not the real website of the Technical University of Vienna, of course. But you will see that the so-called manifest file was discovered here and that there are some data sources. Now, if let's say if my university now has additional data to make available, for example, if I'm the Technical University of Vienna, I now newly implemented an Edu API endpoint. What I would do is I would add this to this so-called manifest file. I'm just showing this very briefly. As I said, this is more relevant for technical audience. I would add like a third data source here, where I specify another data source from my university. Then I can go to my institution dashboard. I would see there's now a new data source popping up here, and then I can say, well, let's fetch data from that source, and then it's going to be processed in a minute and will show up in the actual course catalog. Let's refresh. Now I see I have more courses here from the Technical University of Vienna, and I will have a couple of courses that were just freshly fetched from my new Edu API endpoint. Well, of course, one of the main points to stress here is that all, as I said, the whole discovery mechanism that we proposed is scalable and can be used by any recognized European higher education institution to feed the data into the system without needing to manually be registered or onboarded somewhere else. Now, just finish with some thoughts about how also this can be used, for example, in the context of a European University Alliance, because we know that the European University Alliances are frequently working on creating a joint course catalog for the Alliance office. And of course, what the structure that has been proposed here can be used by alliances to achieve that, especially if you have member institutions that may have for whom it may be convenient to have data in different standards. You can easily bridge them and power your joint course catalog by the aggregation approach and aggregator we developed in this project. Of course, if you do that, you would need to expose your information. You could have different choices of running the aggregation. You could, of course, use the QualityLink aggregator that is provided by the QualityLink project. But of course, an alliance could, of course, also run all this themselves, as the whole solution that we developed is, of course, an open source. It's, of course, an open source piece of software, so every alliance would equally be able to run this themselves on their own infrastructure, if that would be preferable for them. Skip that, and this is just some details about the level of implementation, and then maybe end with some additional perspective. Of course, now we have been focusing very much on let's say, if you think of Jochen's earlier slide, the left part of the ecosystem, bringing data from different institutions into an aggregated data set. But of course, the use of such a data set is not only in having one single course catalog, one single portal where you can access the data available. Of course, the idea is also to make such an aggregated data set reusable fully as an open data set that can be downloaded by researchers, and that can also be accessed by an API or similar to integrated in other applications. And so, for example, in some other projects, we've been working on a platform called Skill Data, where we provide a solution for people to analyze their skills, to profile their skills against different skill frameworks, and then discover, for example, learning opportunities or further skill development opportunities to achieve their goals or their future ambitions. And of course, that's something where reliable data on courses could easily come in to to feed the, let's say, the final step of showing people suitable learning opportunities for their future skill developments. So yeah, I think that the most important is that the value of having a aggregated data set on courses and credentials is of course not in just having one single portal, but in making this data set available for various purposes and integrations and other things. With that, I would like to finish, at least from my side. I don't know, back to Jochen if you want to share any last words, or otherwise back to Estela.
Back to Estela.
Okay, thank you. So thank you, our presenters, for providing the ideas on what has been QualityLink working on. And as we saw in the beginning that there were half of the people know what micro-credentials are, but the other half were maybe more reserved, as more participants didn't answer the question than answered. Okay, so my first question to our panelists would be, I know that usually when alliances started combining and when talking about micro-credentials, they also started discussions on what micro-credentials are. So my main question would be now for the panelists, maybe you can share what is the situation in your institutions. Do you have a common agreement with an institution what micro-credentials are? Do you have a common understanding on that? Of course, our partners maybe can say how in the project QualityLink we have defined what micro-credentials are, but also I think we all come from Europe, so we might know some common understandings, but are there still discussions in these kind of areas? So my first question is what these micro-credentials are and how we define in our institutions what are micro-credentials. I don't know who wants to start. Colin, Airina?
Airina or Henri, please go ahead. Jochen and I just talked a lot already, so.
Okay. I think that we already used that the topic of micro-credentials is on the broader scale when it comes to national, I would say, definitions, also European definitions. Also in university alliances, people more or less take this concept as short learning opportunities or formal education divided into non-formal education opportunities. So I think this is already like the large setup. But of course, when we go deeper into the concept, we find a lot of implementational definitions. By implementational definitions, I would take this digital and micro-credential, which is issued as the credential for the person who completed this short learning opportunity. So then we have this credential with the data behind and digital data set behind it. But the common understanding, I would say, still goes for the broader mission of micro-credentials in education.
All right, great. Do I also continue maybe directly? Yeah, very good points, Irina. And this is something that probably in the last 8 years, my gut feeling still is that it really depends on the stakeholder group that we discuss with, because if I discuss it nationally, maybe at our own institution in Tampere University about micro-credential, it also depends quite much on the vocabulary, because in Finnish we still use this kind of pienet osaamiskokonaisuudet that kind of resonates more with the actual kind of content, the short volume of learning, or even like before when we discussed quite a lot on short learning programs, so that it's more or less like a bundle of learning opportunities, typically in this context ECTS bearing and to some extent it might be even a program or degree kind of a idea. But then if we talk about in ECIU university, like in the alliance context, there might be that some of the same stakeholders are there, but then I think we very often talk about this kind of the actual record of the learning outcomes that you actually own, that are somehow portable. You own them in your digital wallet. So that's more or less like the actual credential certificate part of it. But oftentimes, I think when discussing nationally, I feel that we don't really necessarily talk about the actual digital side of it. It's more on the level of content. And I think that's just fine. But I think it's always like there's a bit of ambiguity if we don't specify what we actually mean. So that's why I think when we use the term micro-credential, I think it's anyways good to mention, okay, should we now focus on the actual content, on the learning opportunity itself, or should we now talk about data and maybe the credential part of it, just to kind of remove some of the ambiguity.
Thank you, Airina and Henri. And maybe I give now the floor for Jochen or Colin to say if you want to add anything, are there discussions in your institutions? And also to finalize with how we define micro-credentials in QualityLink. Okay, Jochen.
Yes, Estela, excellent question that makes me think. So we are in the as a dual study university where students spend 3 months at the company and then 3 months at the university, and these phases alter throughout their study period until bachelor's degree, and then some of them go on to do a master's. But we are, as DHBW, we have, I would say, 32,000 of the 35,000 students are in bachelor's programs. So for us, micro-credentials and shared course catalogs would be most useful if it's aimed at bachelor's students. And my idea is that the students would complete a module and get a digital credential on that module that they can post on career websites on LinkedIn. And this would signal to their employers also, I have now acquired these competences, and executives from the company would say, well, we have a project that just perfectly fits. So that for me, displaying the acquired competences during the course of study already would be a main objective. But each institution is different, and some of our institutions in the EU for Dual Alliance, so that is focused on dual study universities, some of them are more focused on master programs. And to be honest, it is easier. Our master programs are already divided into single modules that can be booked individually for lifelong learning, and that already complete with a certificate. So it was the easiest point to start for us was to start with the master's modules, even though the bachelor's modules would have the greatest potential regarding the number of learners. So yeah, a shared understanding is always up to debate, and that's very fruitful.
Colin?
Yeah, from my side, I mean, as you said before, I'm not from an institution, so I cannot speak from one specific institutional perspective. Just comment 2 things. I mean, one is that I think of course, we still have the situation that when we say micro-credential, that sometimes we talk about certificate, and sometimes we talk about the learning opportunity leading to it. But I don't really, I mean, on the one hand, I think that's not really a huge problem because we do the same when we talk about the bachelor. I mean, sometimes we mean bachelor as in the program, sometimes we mean as in the paper. And also, of course, maybe the actual certification, it's only so much we can talk about. So maybe it is natural that the whole, that of course we discuss more about the side of creating these short learning opportunities or remodeling things into such short learning opportunities than the actual certificate itself. Other than that, my impression is maybe in general more that maybe it's not so much the problem that we have so different understandings what micro-credential means, because of course it is deliberately very broad what it can mean. So but I think it's more that we have very different ideas what it is for. And I can see that in some cases it's really seen more as a self-standing learning opportunity offered to external, like non-students or like students who really come just for micro-credential. In some cases, I see that it's more used as a more, let's say, as a I don't know, transaction unit or like as a vehicle for organizing mobility within an alliance. So it's more used almost like a module or a course and not really so much self-standing to be studied by outside students. Sometimes it's seen more as really purely further education. Sometimes it's also seen as a possible entry route to higher education. So I think it's more the very different ideas. What is it for rather than what it is.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for sharing these kind of ideas. And I think this would be more clear now for the participants as we have started with the very different aspects of micro-credentials. But I think all of them cover the main topic, what are these challenges? Okay, so let's maybe go and ask our panelists. We have heard already some ideas on what challenges QualityLink project focused on. Okay, we also see a challenge now that institutions are not, higher education institutions are not very much tend to open their course catalogs or to test it if they are in a certain standards, okay? But I think there are much more challenges that we can face. And now I look at, I don't know, Airina, maybe, what challenges do you see for the micro-credentials?
Okay, so we talk now about micro-credentials, which means then I cover both definitions. So first, like short learning opportunities. For this, in our university, we have already quite some years when we designed and offered short learning possibilities with recognition. Well, let's say dividing long 6, for example, ECTS formal study courses into short courses, non-formal learning opportunities for society members and different target groups. The first challenge was maybe to define the new service, because this takes time. And if it is bottom up, it is always requires top-down approach, because this is a new service, a new learning opportunity within a higher education institution. In our case, it was easier because our rector came and said that we need to have short, non-formal offerings for society members, for different target groups, and we need somehow to offer these short learning possibilities. So in our case, then we had to establish the new digital infrastructure where we could have registration to these courses, the courses certification, which is issued to participants, marketing strategies. We of course had to have teacher training on how to work with these people with the flexible learning hours, flexible time schedules, and also very, very flexible learning design. And then after we did that, we realized that this is a non-formal opportunity in a variety of online blended forms and different other things. But they did not have this digital micro-credential with a digital data set. And that was already later. So I would say that for 8 to 9 years, we already have this offer for short learning courses as micro-credentials at Vytautas Magnus University. It is called Open Studies. And then people can transfer this ECTS because all these courses are within the definition of ECTS, and they can be recognized in formal studies, in formal programs, bachelor programs, and master study programs. The challenge is when you decide to issue digital data set, digital and micro-credentials, because first you need to establish somehow institutional understanding what it is, what kind of data you need to put into this digital data set, whether and how we can ensure data privacy and all other things in our systems. And then to set it up so that it communicates between, let's say, virtual learning environment like Moodle or different one, study department, and then the file which is received by the learner. So institutions have to make quite a number of decisions. There are different offerings. For example, we use European EDCI system, Europass system, where we register programs, these short micro-credentials, and then issue digital credential. But also we want to issue the one from virtual learning environment. And here we have quite a new challenge, which is, I would say, administration of the digital and micro-credentials that are issued to the learners. So starting with the concept, with the conceptual things and regulations within an institution, you also have to set up digital infrastructure for that. And then you also have to decide who will be working on that, who will be administering micro-credential process, who would be like registering, because the digital micro-credential belongs to the learner and not to the institution, but we still need to know what we issue and what we want to recognize in the formal education system. So this is a long way, I would say, until everything is orchestrated so that we can hear the symphony but not some chaos. And I think this is very challenging indeed, because these are new processes, and I would say it takes quite some time, several years at least, to do that.
Okay. Thank you, Airina. And now I look at Henri, and also referring to the comments in chat that also mention that the framework for micro-credentials in Finland is still under development and piloting, and Finland has taken a slightly different approach than to Ireland or Estonians. Okay, so I also want you to comment on what challenges do you see and how this refers to Finland landscape, as you come from Finland.
Okay, maybe I start first with the ECIU example, because this network of 13 institutions, I think just by the kind of when we 7-8 years ago, when we were like setting up the first European Alliance project with ECIU, and we thought like, okay, what would the micro-credentials be about? I think still like 7-8 years later, we deal with many of the consequences that were decided at that time. And just like a brief story short is that ECIU decided to basically unpack short learning modules from existing study programs, basically to have this kind of a ECTS bearing. That itself, I mean, like that we open up certain kind of short courses from different universities, have one common platform, kind of a course catalog, engage.eciu.eu, that initially kind of serves as a platform for the master students across these 13 universities to kind of a very freely kind of take short-on learning opportunities, get the digital credentials afterwards, get them recognized for your master's program in a particular faculty. That itself, of course, is a very, very complex beast on its own. But at the same time, I think like ECIU really wanted to kind of go and serve also like more continuous learners and like also students beyond this network. That eventually became a really, really big issue because we are opening up certain kind of opportunities, let's say from an IT faculty in Tampere. And the IT faculty in Tampere who's opening up something for a larger alliance probably doesn't know the framing of micro-credentials even. They might just think, hey, we have this pretty nice short course that can cater for different types of students, but still this course, the teacher of it is not connected to this big wheels, so to say, and all kinds of data getting from Moodle systems or from the student information systems to our common platforms. Lots of issues about data flows that we have had to deal with. So I think it's very often like the main issues arise from the kind of a target audience you want to cater for, and eventually if you want to target very different kinds of target audiences. So for instance, if you would like to build a business model under it and maybe sell some of those courses, or for entrepreneurs or employees from different businesses to on board to those micro-credentials, that's a completely different kind of a mechanism that doesn't really fit to this ECIU challenge, and that has created a lot of course tensions therein. But yeah, I think there are many issues that like kind of a cluster out based on this very fundamental decisions on who do you want to cater for and what the micro-credential actually is. But yeah, I just checked right now that we have, I think in the last couple of years now, then issued from the central platforms on 3,500 these digital credentials to the learners, particularly, so that the recognition issues are now way easier. So we have like many of the issues have been solved, but at the same time, there's always a trade-off. But for the Finnish system, maybe I don't know, like I need to read the comments, so maybe we'll come back to that later.
Okay, thank you. And I look now to Jochen. Maybe you can reflect, do you see any more challenges than you have presented from QualityLink perspective in German context, in your institutional context about designing, issuing, and working in your alliance? I know you're from different one.
Well, yes. One challenge was actually the technical issues. Actually getting a qualified e-seal, getting the institutional processes, and getting ready to issue, in our case, EDC credentials. We are just starting with that. We are also, as our alliance is much younger than ECIU, we are only now finalizing the micro-credentials catalog, and it will be published within the next 2 months, I would say. So it all takes time, and especially in an alliance where you have to agree on everything. But and then we have this different views about what a university or a higher education is and which degrees of freedom it has. So our ministry always emphasizes that we have a lot of autonomy, and we are free to implement our programs as we want. But at the same time, they're publishing a note about micro-credentials where they say we cannot issue micro-credentials to our own students as part of their degree program. We can only issue it for extracurricular activities and in the context of Europe studies, as they say. So a lot of the things regarding micro-credentials are still not clear. And we need to have the courage also as institutions to shape the future of learning, the future of micro-credentials. And this, yeah, it requires courage. It's not so easy.
Okay, thank you. And now I look to Colin. I know that you're not from higher education institution, but you work within alliances. And last week, KAC also organized a masterclass on micro-credentials as one of the participants. Maybe you can reflect, on what challenges you saw there or were indicated something else that was mentioned.
Yeah, I can try. So I think on the one hand, we see that there's more and more institutions are using micro-credentials for various purposes. We see that luckily also that there's more happening in terms of creating credentials that are focused on equity and access, and credentials that are helping disadvantaged learners. So I think that's a good sign. So it's because sometimes at some point you had the impression that it is, I'd say, a very commercial further education driven discussion. So that's, I think, a good sign. We also saw that there's maybe a little bit of a tension between let's say, two points of view. The one being that only the credential counts, or only the skills that are certified in the credential counts, no matter how you achieve them. So that was really be focusing on only the skills that are documented in the credential. And then there's, of course, another view that says, well, the discussion should actually be more about let's say, the guided learning opportunity or the guided learning pathway, so that we should focus our attention more on developing learning, high quality learning opportunities that help you achieve the skills, and that's more important than the actual certification of skills as such. And then finally, I think we also saw that recognition, especially when you look at micro-credentials, the whole question about recognition is very multifaceted. And sometimes in traditional degrees, we often think about recognition as a very clear yes or no decision. Is this degree recognized or not? I think when we look at micro-credentials, it's maybe really more depending on what I'm intending to use this credential for. So, for example, if I'm intending to use it for improving my position on the labor market in a very specific sector of the labor market, and it's a very specific job, it's maybe not so relevant whether it's recognized by other universities or in what ways it's formally recognized in academia. If I want to use that micro-credential to have it recognized towards a bigger degree somewhere else, then maybe that is more important than its actual standing on the labor market. So I think we see that is a more multi-faceted questions. And I think related to that is also there's still an ongoing debate. For example, should all micro-credentials be linked to a qualifications framework level or not? And there's some people who say it's extremely important that every credential is linked to a level as an EQF level 6 or EQF level 7, or saying this is belong on a first cycle or second cycle level. And then there are others that say, well, the formal level designation is actually not very important. It's as long as the learning outcomes and skills that you achieve with a micro-credential are clearly defined, it doesn't really matter what is to assign it to a formal level. So these are some of the discussions we had there last week.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing. And before moving to the next question, I see the hand raised by one of the participants, but I'm not sure if the participants have the microphone rights. So if you can speak, Elena, you can ask the question, but if no, maybe we can find your question in the chat as well. Because I think no. Okay, so we will be waiting for your questions in the chat. And now let's move to another question about how okay, we have heard already some ideas that some technical solutions have been already tested and trying to be tested out. Okay, so Airina has already shared that they used more virtual learning platform and Europass as technologies for issuing micro-credentials. Henri, what about your alliance? How do you issue and what technical solutions has your alliance came up with?
Yeah, well, long story short is that currently we're, of course, logged into the European Digital Credentials Infrastructure, so EDC. We have been I think we started in 2021 experimenting with some of these micro-credential platforms. We also were in the European Blockchain Service Infrastructure pilots to figure out whether we could use blockchain to issue these non-tamperable kind of a secure digital credentials when the learners successfully complete the learning opportunities. But yeah, now in the last 3 years, we've had it centrally in our Engage platform, so to say that we have a kind of a mandated issue approach, so that the institutions themselves do not issue the credentials to the learners, but we have ECIU is in a different position because they have an association behind, and for this mandated issue, if you have this kind of electronic seal, you can basically it can be registered for this kind of like a company or entity. So the ECIU got this qualified seal. It also took like months and I think probably almost a year. Jochen, because you said that you also had problems. We had technical for legal teams, we had operational teams to set it in motion. It was a long process, but eventually we got it, and it's done in a way that the course catalog in our backbone in this kind of a Engage platform, like all the course data is there. We don't necessarily get all the information from the what the learners actually did during the courses from, let's say, Moodle systems, because the data doesn't really flow in that way to our central platform. But basically, when the learners successfully complete them, we centrally issue them to the Europass wallets of each learner who successfully completed the learning opportunity. And then we have built this so-called competence passport in like that is more kind of your own competence and skill kind of a overview in Engage platform, that the learner can accumulate the competencies and kind of get recommended what this kind of learning pathways based on what you have done so far. So basically, off they go to your LearnerPass wallet, this kind of a non-tamperable, like safe, secure credential, and then in the Engage, you will have the kind of your competence passport go a bit up, and then they can be next recommendations for you what you could study next, and the AI also will provide some recommendations on top of that. But yeah, EDC we build upon now.
Okay, thank you. Jochen, do you want to contribute from your side here? How advanced are you here?
I think I have commented already earlier. Nothing to add here.
Okay, thank you. So we had one more question in the chat that I would like maybe Colin to answer. You were discussing on this question, but it was about, do you have API that we can use to recommend to the lifelong learners? Maybe you can answer to this question.
Yeah, I dropped a brief response in the chat already, but indeed, I think there will be there's no API yet from the or no public API to access the aggregated data set because there's not that much data in it yet, but we will have an API that you can also access the aggregated QualityLink data. So that is then something you could use to search and recommend courses for lifelong learners. And of course, it could be based on, for example, on ESCO skills or whatever would be suitable for your use case. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And maybe a last of the question that we can use for our roundup discussion and finalization is, so what future for micro-credentials do you see? Okay, and I start here with Airina.
Well, we have to consider very, very different things, and they become sometimes also important factors, whether the process of designing micro-credentials is meaningful, easy, if it leads really to flexible learning path, or if it is, sustaining its own initiative like a hype. I think it depends a lot about collaborative efforts. So first of all, I would need to say that the things we were talking about now were only the challenges that different institutions face. But these challenges are mostly related with technical side, which is interoperability, for example, institutional regulations, national regulations, settings that have been set up previously before micro-credentials came. And they're very, very diverse and very, very different. And European Digital Education Hub worked a lot in order to solve these issues in higher education interoperability task force, for example, but also other initiatives, because we in EU countries, we have very, very different level of understanding, aim, strategic development, documents, let's say, and visions and missions of micro-credentials. I think a lot of regulations are in place. All higher education establishments want to recognize learning within, let's say, their formal study programs, but each institution has limitations and quota for that. It is not possible, it is not feasible to imagine that people will recognize, let's say, 90% of their micro-credentials in the formal study program somewhere in Europe, where, let's say, they will come to study only 10% of that program. Because studies are always related with some efforts, human efforts, financial efforts, infrastructure, equipment, everything that actually we've been putting into place through very important pilots funded by the European Commission and also higher education institutions and experts in Europe. So I think this is not, it cannot be wasted, but so that we apply it purposefully, we need, first of all, to establish also legacy for the process of micro-credentials, I would say development, taking into consideration interoperability, technical competences, staff competences, institutional competences, technical readiness, but also administrative procedures, responsibilities, and maintenance of European and national micro-credential systems. Because it is very often that we set up something in place, it works for a certain period of time, but then we lack continuity of it. So I think continuation and competence development, collaborative solutions to be in place. I don't think today students may seamlessly navigate through higher education institutional digital infrastructures, not because we don't want that this happens, but because we have a lot of challenges related with local, national, regional, institutional problems affected by cybersecurity, by data privacy, by AI, by technology development, by many other challenges that we have on local level. But I think we all see benefit and added value on that. We do need to continue collaboration. I think European Digital Education Hub did a lot through the efforts to bring community of practice, where we saw that we have availability to the experts, to experience, to collaborative effort. And I think these projects, they mean a lot in order to develop these competence together and find the meaningful ways to apply and further continue with micro-credentialization. But we need to recognize not only learning outcomes. I still see a lot of issues in our vocabularies, because I see skills, and I know it's for the economic, cooperation with the industry partners. But if we understand that skills is automated capability of doing something, I don't know if companies want people who do it like robotics, I think people need competences with the knowledge, with the attitudes, with the responsibilities, and not only the automatic ability to do something. So if we follow with the European instruments, EBSCO and other things, then I think we really succeed, that we all talk common language and we collaborate together successfully. So a lot of conditions, and I hope that these European pilots and projects bring us together one day to a collaborative, interoperable, and understandable concepts.
Thank you. Henri, what would be your thoughts here?
Airina had so many great points, but I'll try to provide one alternative perspective, because I think we're still very much in the kind of an early adopter phase in this micro-credential scene, so to say. And I think any kind of institutions, they are desperately looking for successful benchmarks, so to say, like things that can be to some extent replicated, and that they know that, okay, there's some security on how we approach micro-credentials, that we know what the process would be and probably what the outcome would be. So I think at the moment, like many of the alliances and pilot projects on micro-credentials, they kind of have to pave the way, and kind of they probably will find out many challenges that the upcoming alliances, for instance, probably won't have. So I think they desperately need the kind of benchmarks, very focused examples of what micro-credentials could be and how they help learners in their competence development. So basically to just kind of be able to kind of push through to this early adopting phase. And I think in the long run, what would be excellent is just like that, this kind of how learners widely navigate competence development, that there's more flexibility, a bit regardless of what the terminology would be. I think we will most likely see all kinds of alterations from micro-credentials and new terms and approaches popping up. But I think if there's more flexibility, of course, taking into consideration some of those that the universities probably won't change, like at least very rapidly and tremendously, but still like more flexibility, more portability, and just be able to kind of upskill, reskill faster than before and in different ways than before. So probably some of those thoughts came to my mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Jochen?
Well, micro-credentials are not new. They were just had a different name maybe, and they're maybe new to higher education in their study programs. But of course, where did the European approach to micro-credentials come from? It was from the opportunities of online learning and the success of industry certificates. So then we looked at what does this mean for higher education institutions, and which opportunities does it give to higher education institutions. And so the future is maybe back to what they were. They were learning certificates that proved learning that has happened, and they added rigorous assessment as a European specificity, and added European infrastructure and harmonization of the approach. At the micro-credentials masterclass last week, we heard a lot about skill-based hiring from William O'Keefe from the European Commission, DG Employment, and also from Shizuka Kato and colleagues from OECD. So they see a focus away from degrees and a shift away from degrees and more to skills that are important for success on the labor market. And there, of course, micro-credentials come in handy for higher education as well, because we certify specific skills or competences. And so they help us adapt for the future. And they also help us, at least in my institution, to modernize the approaches of learning and teaching.
Thank you. Colin, would you like to share your thoughts about the future, and maybe also invite participants if they want to contribute somehow to QualityLink project?
Yes, well, when it comes to maybe just one reflection, I found it interesting that the discussion that Airina just brought up about the terminology of skills versus competences, and that also came up a lot in the masterclass last week, and several people stressed that even if we talk about the union of skills, skills portability, and that we should not forget to think about other competences such as responsibility and autonomy as well. When it comes to the future, I would say that, I mean, my hope would really be that we'll get to a situation that micro-credentials really become part of the standard offer of education institutions in Europe, because quite often it's currently still a bit of a niche topic, or something that is done as an add-on outside of the normal mission of institutions and the normal funding of institutions. So if micro-credentials would become part of the standard offering of universities, I think that would be a great vision to strive for. And indeed, as you said, we would be happy for everyone who is willing to participate in the further piloting of the QualityLink project. So if your institution has a data set on your courses or credentials in any of the supported interoperable formats, we would be very happy if you would consider contributing it into the course data aggregator, and we'll be, of course, very ready to assist anyone who would be willing to contribute to that further testing.
Okay, thank you. So I ask Colin, maybe you can indicate your email in the chat so the participants know how to contact you. And as we are coming already to the end of our session, once again, I want to thank all the participants for participating in this webinar. I want to share and invite you to participate to other events during this week, during this Open Education Week of this year. So there is one tomorrow about open educational practices for digital critical digital competence. There is one on academic publishing on Thursday, and one more on Friday. So you see here the titles and of course the link to register and join them. You are very much invited. And once again, I finish with invitation to join us at Eden Annual Conference in Porto this year in June 14-16. You can see here the link code for the event, and we're waiting for papers or presentations or your participation and sharing. And all the peer-reviewed full papers, they are usually published in Eden Ubiquity proceedings, and later, or the best ones, they are promoted for Eden Open Journal, European Journal of Open Distance and E-Learning. So this is the Eden's journal that publishes selected articles. Okay, so we definitely promote the best papers of Eden to be included in there. So we encourage you to participate and join. And of course, if you are a member of Eden, you can always join Eden NAP, which is all the members of all institutions who are Eden members. Okay, so NAP also organizes webinars every month. So the the next one that is tomorrow is also Eden NAP webinar that you are welcome to join. So thank you everyone for participating, and hope to see in your events. In our events, I hope to see you in our events. Okay, thank you.